This is the oldest surviving text of Stoicism known to man. What up, everybody? Esoteric Eddie here. Namaste. Today, we're going to hang back, chill out, and take a look at the instructions of Shuruppak, also known as the instructions of Shuruppak. And it is an old Sumerian text which provides instructions on how to live a proper life, a successful and prosperous life. And some scholars consider this as like a kind of like a source influence for Proverbs in the Bible, and kind of an influence on the Ten Commandments as well. Some of them are kind of similar. And there are a lot more instructions or commandments in this text. And some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are weird. Some of them don't make sense because the text is broken in that area. So I'm not going to go over every single one, but we will be analyzing some of my favorite, some that I think are important. And to me, this is basically the oldest form of Stoicism. You know, a lot of these pieces of advice have to do with walking a moderate path, living a life of modesty, and living a life of correct behavior, so that you don't end up creating a life of hell, of self-inflicted hell. And it's interesting too, because a lot of these are still valuable to this day. I feel like a lot of these pieces of advice are still relevant. And it's funny too, because it also shows just how much we have not changed as humans. It's testament to how simple-minded we really are, and how, despite all of our technological advancements, geopolitical advancements, we are still just basic human beings, just creatures of habit and urges, you know, the beings of clay, as the Bible would say, and even the Sumerian text. It's just hilarious. But real quick, the instructions of Shuruppak, which was a very famous city of the Kingdom of Sumer, are almost 4,000 years old, or just about 4,000 years old. They are dated to about 2000 BCE, before the Common Era, making them not just one of the oldest Sumerian texts, but one of the oldest texts known to man. And I think it's awesome that, being one of the oldest surviving texts, it is a valuable piece of human literature, passing down instructions from our ancestor. These are instructions from our Sumerian ancestor. And so it is believed that this text was written, not directly by, but written by the king of Shuruppak at the time, who was Tutu, most likely written by one of his scribes or whatever. So it was put together by Tutu, who was the last king before the Great Flood. And he was giving these instructions to Ziusudra, who was the survivor of the flood story, the Sumerian flood story. So Ziusudra was the Sumerian Noah. And so he was giving these instructions to Ziusudra, probably with the knowledge that the flood was coming. But yeah, it's an awesome piece of work, again, because it's like, it's real. I mean, this is coming from our ancestor, and it's so easy to feel disassociated from it or disconnected from it, because it was so long ago and it's so weird and somewhat foreign. But the reality of it, the actuality of it, is this is a very real text coming from our very real ancestor, who lived at one point and has some wisdom to share with us, some experience to share with us. And again, even though it's so foreign and so ancient, it's still so relevant, as you will see. Some of it is very relevant and kind of funny. So yeah, I'm going to just go through it and, give my 2 cents on it, you know. But yeah, I hope everybody's doing great. I've got so much awesome content lined up for you. And hey, real quick, I do want to address my channel a little bit. You know, as it's growing, as I'm entering my 3rd year as a content creator under the brand Esoteric Eddie, I'm sort of redefining and rethinking what I want to do with all of this. And just so you know, I have always been an artist. I have always been passionate about content creation way before that was even a word. I have VHS tapes, mini VHS tapes, going back to elementary, middle school, because I used to carry around a camcorder with me back in the day. I've always loved filming. I've always loved writing. I've been writing stories since I was a kid. And so I know a lot of you who are day one fans, day one supporters, probably supported my channel or loved my channel for my original documentaries that I used to make and that I am still in the process of making. You know, in other words, many of you subscribed to my channel, followed my content, and have continued to do so because you love my long form documentaries. And you might have noticed that I haven't been putting out a lot of those. I've been kind of experimenting with content and not just experimenting, but also kind of just dealing with what time I have, because I'm a busy man. I'm a business owner and I have a life of friends and family, you know, of course, and I live on a ranch, which requires me to do work here as well. And so, to be honest, making these long form documentaries isn't very sustainable right now, isn't sustainable for me right now with the time that I have. And I'm trying to balance that all out. So I'm basically just saying thank you. Thank you to everybody who's been here since day one. Thank you to everybody who's recently found me. But just know that my content is going to change, and I'm still going to provide awesome full-length documentaries on esoteric, occult, and conspiratorial subjects because I love doing that. I've been doing stuff like that way before I was popular on social media. But I also love and have always loved just sitting down and interviewing people and getting their stories. I love speaking to regular people because although I can sit back and, you know, tell you stuff like this, give you information on esotericism, occultism, conspiratorial subjects, and, you know, just give you my perspective on subjects that have been rehashed by thousands of other accounts, I think it's more valuable to also bring unique stories from everyday people, you know, such as myself. So launching next month, next month I will be launching my podcast segment of this channel, and I've been interviewing some people, getting ready for that. And so you're going to start seeing more podcast interviews with everyday people that I know, and eventually, you know, people that will reach out to me to be on the show, or special guests and stuff like that. But some of these interviews that I already have are very inspiring and very wild, with a lot of awesome experiences and pieces of information from everyday people that I know, you know, friends, family, or associates. And so, yeah, you know, thank you for rocking with me. I'm going to continue to produce documentaries, but I'm also I'm not going to just focus on the documentaries. Moving forward, I am going to focus on doing podcast interviews. I'm going to focus on continuing these presentations that I have been doing. Like, you've seen some recent presentations from me, like the Prodigy video I just released, the presentation I did on Terrence Howard, you know, just having fun with it, man, just having fun with it. So thank you for rocking with me, and I hope you enjoy all the various pieces of content that I have put out and that I will continue to put out. So anyways, with that being said, let's get into the instructions of Shuruppak and see what our ancestor has to offer us in advice. Okay. So it starts off with an introduction, of course, saying, in those days, in those far remote days, in those nights, in those far away nights, in those years, in those far remote years, at that time, the wise one who knew how to speak in elaborate words, lived in the land Shuruppak. The wise one who knew how to speak with elaborate words, lived in the land. It's weird. Sumerian texts do that a lot. If you ever read these translations of the Sumerian texts, for whatever reason, they felt the need to like repeat themselves, in those days, in those nights, in those faraway nights, in those years, in those faraway years. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like George Lucas might have gotten influence from that for the intro to Star Wars, well, how does it go? I don't know. In a far, far away galaxy, and some people say that he actually, no, it's actually been said by Zecharia Sitchin, the writer of the Anunnaki books, that George Lucas did reach out to him for influence or for some advice and influence on his characters. So I don't doubt that George Lucas got a lot of influence from the Sumerian text for Star Wars. But anyway, so Ubara Tutu says to Ziusudra, "My son, let me give you instructions. You should pay attention. Do not neglect my instructions. Do not transgress the words I speak. The instructions of an old man are precious. You should comply with them." Interesting. So the very first piece of advice is super random and kind of funny, but this is how it starts. It says here, "You should not buy a donkey which brays. It will split your midriff." A lot of these are kind of like strange like that, but they have, I feel, these like underlying deeper meanings, right? So he says here, you should not buy a donkey which brays, which means like kicks, right? Kicks or is wild, because it will split your midriff. And he might have just meant it for that reason, just surface level. Hey, don't buy a donkey that's crazy because it's gonna fucking kill you, But I feel like, as you'll see, because as we move through these, you'll notice that he's not just being mundane. Like, he's saying a lot of this stuff to be metaphorical. So to me, this means like, don't buy something that already comes with problems. Like, don't buy a car that already has issues. Don't buy something from a dealership who's like, oh yeah, it's great, but it kind of makes this weird noise and smoke comes out of the hood when you drive like more than 10 miles, but it's a great price. So it's like, don't buy something that's already giving you issues, is the way that I see it. So I think that's good advice, and that can go for so many other things in life. It's like, if something is already troublesome, don't even mess with it, right? It's like, okay, so moving on. There's probably about, 30 or so. There's a lot more. I don't even know. I didn't count all of them, but we're probably only going to go over about 30 of these super stoic and ancient pieces of information from the Anunnaki. Okay. So moving on, you should not vouch for someone, for that man will have a hold on you, and you yourself should not let somebody vouch for you. That man will despise you. So you should not vouch for someone, for that man will have a hold on you. I guess vouch in this word could mean like, well, vouching means, right, like putting in a word or whatever, or like testifying for the person. But I feel like in this sense, it also means like, you should not, you should not take care of somebody, and I've experienced that myself. It's like, so many people come to me for money, like literally this past month or two, like I've had people come for me for money and not pay me back. And I've had customers that I've done work for that have not paid me back or paid me at all, So it's like, you should do not give to people, right? Or like, no, you should definitely give. I don't know how to word this, but do not, don't be the person that somebody relies on, right? Like, if you become the person that somebody relies on, as Ubar Tutu says, as the king of Shuruppak says, that man will have a hold on you. So if you become the person that somebody relies on, it's like, now, like me, you're in a deficit, right? So it's like, just, yeah, if people are coming to you for desperation, like, just be wary, you know, and make sure that you can handle the desperation that they're asking for. Anyways, you should not loiter about where there is a quarrel. Well, actually, hold on. Let me go back to it, because I just remember something. So on that previous one, right, as I just said, do not be the person that somebody relies on unless you can handle that. So these people who have taken money from me recently, to be honest, it's like, it didn't break my bank. In some cases, it was hundreds of dollars, and it still didn't break my bank, you know. But that's because I've done well for myself, and I'm able to handle these requests from these people, these vouching that these people need from me, you know. But if you can't handle it, then just say no. Just say, I'm sorry, dude, but I this is something that I cannot handle, and I feel for you, you know. But I know it's a part of my dharma in this life to be that father figure for people, you know. Unfortunately for me, all throughout my life, I've had to be a father figure for people, a brother figure for people, you know, a leader. Yeah. So, but it's okay. So that's my own personal dharma. It's my own relationship with God, and I know what He's requiring of me, what it's requiring of me. So when I go through these situations, I know that it's just a part of my dharma, and it's really a lesson for those people, because some of the customers that I've had recently that have cheated me of my money, like I said, it's not going to break my bank, but what it's going to do is it's going to cause that person to forever lose my trust and forever lose my help, because I'm never ever going to help these people again. So I learned a lesson. I learned a cheap lesson, but they learned an immeasurable lesson. You know, a very costly lesson. You know, price. You know, a very what's the word? They learned a very painful lesson, right? Like for me, it was $100, $20, whatever. Nice, cheap price lesson to learn. For them, it was a high price lesson, because now they lost me forever, and I will no longer help them out. So don't be that person, right? Don't be that person who borrows money with the intention to not give it back, because is it worth it? I mean, you get your $20, your $100, your $1,000, but you've now lost that person forever. That person who could have been helping you out in these tough times that you're going to have throughout your entire life. And so, now you've lost them forever. Can you tell I'm a bit angry and bitter about this? Anyway, so I really like this next one. You should not loiter about where there is a quarrel. You should not let the quarrel make you a witness. I love that. I live by this, you know. Don't be that person who is nosy, you know, especially when there's a fight going on. Whenever there's a fight going on, I'm out of there, you know, unless somebody that I love is involved. Obviously, I got to stick around and help. But when things start getting crazy, the moment I start seeing things escalating towards aggression and violence, I'm out of there. Anybody that I'm with, I'm like, hey, let's get out of here, right? Because as the king of Shuruppak says, it's the wise thing to do. Do not get caught up in these quarrels. Do not become a witness in these quarrels, because now you're going to have the law enforcement, you know, knocking on your door. Hey, what'd you see? What happened? Or whatever. Or you're going to get caught up as an accomplice, all these different things, you know. So, and I've had to learn that, of course, the hard way in many instances throughout my life, you know. But now, as an older person, as soon as I see aggression or violence start to arise, I just leave. If there's no necessary reason for me to stay, because from where I come from, a lot of that can lead to real violence, you know, people getting shot, people getting killed. And yeah, man, so if you're going to be out there partying, going to bars and clubs and all that stuff, don't be a knucklehead, man. As soon as people start getting crazy, don't get involved. Don't get involved. Just, politely tell your date, hey, things are getting crazy here. I don't want you to get harmed in any way. Why don't we wrap it up and go somewhere better, somewhere more classy? Anyway, so you should not steal anything. A thief is a lion, but after he has been caught, he will be a slave. Ooh, I love this one right here. Yep, I love this one because I used to have a terrible stealing habit. I loved stealing, and I learned how to steal at a very early age. Not gonna say who, but a couple women in my life showed me that it was okay to steal, and I don't blame them because they kind of did it out of a desperation. But as a kid, I was like, whoa, like they stole, like, so I guess it's okay to steal, and I started stealing at a very young age. I started stealing like around 5 or 6 years old, and it would prove to be a very disastrous habit for me. I got arrested. I've been arrested probably 3 times for stealing. Yeah, 3 times at least for stealing throughout my young life. For stupid stuff too. I got arrested in middle school for stealing some kid's iPod. And these are just the times that I got caught. I mean, oh my gosh, there's been so many times where I got caught stealing in the mall. Like me and my cousins and friends would go to the mall and steal stuff. And of course we'd get caught, but we'd run. They never caught us. But the 3 times that I did get caught were that one time in middle school. I used to steal iPods. I used to steal bikes, and then I would sell them. And this one time I got caught and got arrested, but I got let go. I mean, basically the cop just arrested me to scare me. He called my parents. I had to go home, and I was, what was it? What was the word? Whatever. They kicked me out. They kicked me out of school, suspended me. I was suspended for like a week or something, which is really like not a punishment for a kid. That's like a reward, but whatever, So that was the first time. And then the second time was in high school. I got caught stealing goldfish. So embarrassing. I used to steal snacks all the time. And I was with my friend. We were like getting ready to go smoke some weed at his house. But we stopped by the store first to get some snacks. And I stole some goldfish, and some other snacks. And the loss prevention officer saw me, and he, like, as we were leaving, he grabs me aggressively, and my friend turns around and sees that and just runs. I probably could have got out of it and ran, but for whatever reason, I just gave up, and he just grabbed me. Well, because he was like, "Don't fucking move, or I'm gonna tase you." And so I was like afraid. I was like, "Oh hell no!" So yeah, he took me in, and then my dad came, and yeah, I was way more afraid of my dad than going to jail. They didn't send me to jail, of course, just arrested me, gave me a ticket. But when my dad showed up, I was like, oh shit. I remember the loss prevention officer was like, you got to call your dad, tell him to pick you up. And I was so nervous. I was like shaking on the phone. And the dude was like, your dad must be pretty tough. And I was like, oh yeah. And when my dad showed up, my dad's a tall motherfucker, and back then he was tall and a lot more, sturdier and buff. And so when my dad showed up, the officer looked at me and he's like, I could see why you were afraid. And hell yeah, my dad gave me the ass whooping of the millennium when I got home. And so that was the second time. And then the third time I got caught stealing with a couple friends, and we stole a freaking golf cart, took it for a joyride, ended up this time was wild, and I should tell the story another day, but this time was super wild, man. We took the thing for a joyride. We almost crashed and got super badly hurt. Luckily we didn't. We're 3 running, and I'm like telling my friends, yo, follow me. I know where we're going to go. And these 2 security guards, so they pinned their cars in front of us. I literally did the movie move. One of the cop cars came right in front, scudded, right in front of me, skirted right in front of me. And I just jumped like a Duke of Hazzard and just slid on the hood. And I turn around, and one of the cops, well, they were like security guards, like those senior security guards, but they weren't real cops. They'd called the cops to come for us, but they were just like chasing us down first. But I turn around, and this senior retired cop, security guard, whatever, has my friends at gunpoint. He's like pointing his gun at them, and they have their hands up. And I'm just looking at him like, what the fuck? Why'd you guys stop? And I just kept running. I just booked it. I ran for my life. I got away, or so I thought. I'm like running. I'm going through these little woods, these little backwoods that I know. And I'm like taking off my jacket, trying to look different, And I see these two kids playing in the woods, and they just see me running super frantically. And I just run up to them, and I'm just like, and there's sirens in the background. And I run up to them, and not to scare them, right? And so they're not suspicious that I'm running away from the sirens. I say to them, "Hey, have you guys seen a dog? I'm looking for a dog." And they're like, "No, we haven't seen a dog." And I'm like, "Okay." And I just like kept running, It's just so that way, if anybody were to ask them, "Have you seen somebody running?" They're like, "Oh no, we just saw a guy looking for his dog," or whatever. So I finally get on the other side of town, across town. I'm running towards my friend's house, who I know is going to be home, because that was like our little smoking weed spot. Everybody would go there to kind of like hide out and smoke weed. So I'm running towards his house. I finally get far enough away where I felt safe. So I calm down. I'm like, yes, I got away. Too bad my friends didn't. I get this phone call. It's my sister. And I'm like, oh no. Like my heart dropped, because I'm like, why is she calling me? She calls me, and she just like instantly, she's like, "Eddie, what the fuck did you do?" I'm like, no. But yeah, long story short, one of my friends snitched on me, told the cops who I was and where I lived. That was a whole other thing that caused a huge rift between me and him, but he ended up dying of alcohol abuse. And so I'd forgiven him in my heart long ago, when I knew that his life was not going in a good direction. But anyways, yeah, man. So do not steal anything, because a thief is a lion, but after he has been caught, he will become a slave. And that is true. I don't fucking steal anything anymore. I wouldn't steal a grape. I shit you not. I don't steal anything, dude. I used to steal so much, dude. I remember this one Christmas, I literally went around, when I used to be broke, I went around and I just like filled up my shopping cart with like stuff for the kids, and I just walked out. Not proud of it, honestly. I think stealing is honestly idiotic. And obviously, some people feel like they have to steal because they're hungry, they're starving, and I have literally been there. I have been there. I have had to steal out of starvation before. Not severe starvation. I have family members that I could reach out to, but as a young man, I always felt like the need to survive, to fend for myself, to provide for myself, and not put that burden on my family. So I understand that, but just for me personally, if you're just stealing for fun, that's so idiotic, because you feel like a lion, you feel great, but eventually you will be humbled into a slave of the system. So yeah, I don't steal anything anymore, man. If I can't afford it, I don't fucking buy it. Simple as that. Yeah. Okay. You should not play around with a married young woman. The slander could be serious. My son, you should not sit alone in a chamber with a married woman. I love this one too, because again, it's just testament to how we've always just been the same. We've always just been devious, promiscuous creatures. And this one's particularly hilarious to me because, I've been around a lot of married women who were definitely not faithful. But just the other day, I went out, went on a stroll, just wanted to go hang out at this bar. And I made friends with this young married woman. I didn't know she was married at first. We were just conversating, having a good time. And she was about 5 years younger than me, in her mid-20s. And I guessed it. I guess she was like on her phone, on and off on her phone. And I'm just like, yo, are you going through a breakup right now? Like, what the fuck? And she just like starts laughing like, kind of. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And come to find out, she's like, she married this guy like a couple years ago, just frivolously married him. They weren't even in love. And so she was regretting it. And she was there at the bar because she was basically just like trying to let loose and find a way, I guess, how to get out of the relationship. because she didn't want to be married to him anymore. And so I already knew that was a danger. I'm old enough and been through enough experiences to know, like, you don't mess with a young married woman like that. Like, I mean, there are certain instances, right? There are certain instances where I think it's justifiable, right? But in that instance, obviously her man was like frantic. And so I'm like, it's not even worth it. I didn't hit on her. I didn't, flirt with her. I just hung out with her, and I held space with her, and I provided her advice and just gave her company, company and a little bit of advice, because I'm divorced and I've been through all that. I gave her advice on the legal process of things, on the emotional process of things. But I knew right then and there, I was like, oh, dude, I could have flirted with her and taken advantage of her emotional state at that time and whatever. But I was like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it because, it's not worth it because for one, again, her man is frantic. You never know what the heck they could do. And it's just not the right thing to do. She's married. She's still in the relationship. And my dog is kicking my camera. So if you're hearing that or seeing that, sorry. He's blind, so I'm going to give him the grace. So yeah, man, it's just like, if they're married, if they're still in the marriage, don't even mess with it. Just don't even mess with it. And that actually happened to me recently. I went on a date with somebody, and I was still legally married at the time, but totally separated from the person. It had been a year since we had separated, but I was still legally married. And this was a great girl. I was actually very interested in her, and she was pretty interested in me. But when I told her I was legally married, that kind of shifted everything. And she was like, I'm sorry, but I can't continue this until you're legally divorced, which was smart on her part, because it's like, if you're still legally married, there's still a tie there. Right. And you never know what can happen between that person. They might leave you randomly because they decided to get back with the marriage or whatever, anything. It's just wiser to deal with somebody who is single. Okay. So you should not eat stolen food with anyone. After you have apportioned the bones, you will be made to restore the ox. Another banger, don't eat stolen food with people. Don't partake in blood money. As it says here, after you've apportioned the bones, after you've already discarded the whole animal and the whole abundance, once you get caught, you're going to be made to restore the ox, which is damn near impossible. So you're going to have to pay the price. So, and that's something that I hold dear to my own life too. Like, I'd rather not mess with blood money and stuff like that. Like, if I'm dealing with impurities in my business, I'd rather not, I'd rather not. It's just easier to live a simple life, man. It's easier to just do things the right way. When you do things the wrong way, it might be very profitable in the moment, but in the end, you're going to end up paying it all back. As it says here, after you've apportioned the bones, once you get caught, you're going to have to rebuild the entire ox. And guess what? You're not going to have any of it. So you're going to have to pay the price another way. You're going to have to come up with that money another way. It's just all going to end up coming out of your pocket, out of your health, some other way. So yeah, man, it's like, and I'll tell you a quick story, actually, that relates to this. I remember when I was in high school, there was a chick who lived up the street from me who had just stolen a couple weed plants from this guy, right? And she stole them with a couple other guys. I had nothing to do with this, right? And but she lived up the street from me, and me and my cousin, we used to go to her house and smoke weed with her and hang out. And she was telling us the story, like, yeah, I just got these 2 weed plants. We stole them from this guy that I also knew. Me and him weren't friends. I just knew of him. And yeah, she was boasting about it, whatever. And she asked me if I could just, since I lived down the street, if I could just come by and water them every now and then. It's like, all right, sure, why not? And then it got to the point where she's like, do you want to just have it? Like, I don't really need it or whatever. And I was like, okay. And I took the weed plant. And I remember this other day, I was hanging out at this little bush spot that a lot of the locals used to hang out at. and it was me, me, a friend, and one of the guys who stole the weed plant with that chick. He was one of the guys that went on the mission. And the dude who got robbed showed up. And he was a crazy guy. He was a pretty crazy dude. He didn't know I was involved at all. He didn't know about me. But the guy that was a part of the mission was there. And so he shows up, and instantly the dude who had stolen the plant saw the guy that got robbed, and just his face turned white. And the dude that got robbed pulls out this huge knife, this like machete, and just starts going off on him. And he's like, get on your fucking knees, and I want you to beg for forgiveness. And the whole time I'm just standing there looking at this like, what the fuck? Like he didn't approach me in any way. And I was an arrogant guy at that time. And I was like thinking in my head, man, if he even tries anything, you know, I'm not going for it. You know, I'm going to defend myself. But the guy who was on his knees begging for forgiveness, we've always been like associates. We were never friends. Like if he was my friend, I would not have let that happen to him, but we've always kind of been associates, and we kind of always had a bit of a tension back in those days. So to be honest, I was kind of having an enjoyment watching that. It was super entertaining to watch. But at the same time, as a person, I was thinking in my head, like, okay, if he actually tries to stab him, I'm going to have to step in as well, because I'm not going to just let somebody get stabbed in front of me, you know. But, yeah, so he did the whole thing, get on your fucking knees and beg for forgiveness. And he was begging, boy, he was begging. And, yeah, so it's like it turned into this whole ordeal. And then I remember telling my cousin about that situation, like, oh, dude, you'll never believe what happened the other day. I was smoking weed with so-and-so, and then so-and-so showed up, and this and that happened. And then so my cousin was a loudmouth and went around and told the whole school about what happened. And so that dude that was on his knees begging came up to me angrily, you know, aggressively, and was like, yo, what the heck? Like, why are you telling people this? And I was like, yo, first of all, I didn't tell people this. I told my cousin this, and I have the right to tell my cousin what I saw. And you know, and so he kind of backed off after he saw that I was not backing down, and saw my, you know, whatever. We made amends, and we're older now. We're all men, and we're all cool. But you can see like just the succession of everything. It's like, and luckily I didn't get involved in any of the quarrel, but I could have, because I took on the responsibility of watering the plant, and actually took the plant, and I ended up giving it away myself. I was like, I didn't even want that issue. I was like, fuck this. I gave it to one of my friends. So yeah, man, don't eat stolen food with people. Just don't get involved. Okay. You should not speak improperly. Later, it will lay a trap for you. That one's pretty self-explanatory, you know. Just don't speak improperly. You know, always make sure you have your facts straight. Always make sure that you think before you speak, and that you're clear about what it is that you're saying. You know, very clear, because as they say, your words will be used against you in a court of law. You should not curse strongly. It rebounds on you. I like this one because, well, it's something that I've had to mature into. I love cursing, and I've already done it a few times on this show. I love cursing. I'm a vulgar person, but I do recognize that in many instances, cursing does kind of make you look like a fool. You know, it's distasteful. It's distasteful, and it kind of just shows a lack of self-awareness sometimes, and a lack of respect for others, because not everybody wants to hear that. Not everybody wants to hear you cursing, and it kind of it's a microaggression, and that's one of the reasons why I like to do it, because it's a microaggression for me. And but I also come from a comedic background, so for me, like, cursing is mostly just like a comedic thing. You know, when you hear me cursing, it's mostly just that microaggression that comedy really is. Most comedy is a microaggression, because we're taking what saddens us, or we're taking what annoys us and angers us and making fun of it. You know, but I do believe that cursing all the time is foolish. It does make you look distasteful, you know, just makes you look not mature. Okay. You should not draw up water which you cannot reach. It will make you weak. I'm not too sure what he means by this. I mean, drawing up water, I guess he means by a well, right? This is coming from 4,000 years ago. You should not draw up water which you cannot reach. It will make you weak. It's basically like the same thing as like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't take on more than what you can handle, which is great advice for anything in life, And that's kind of the center of what we've been talking about. Don't do anything that you're not going to be able to handle. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time, baby. Yeah. You should not drive away a debtor. He will be hostile towards you. This is an interesting one, and I wanted to add this one because being a person who's made many mistakes in his early life as an adult, I relate to this one because I messed up my credit as a young person, and I have had many debtors come after me, and I always took it as I decided when I got into debt and I had all these debtors coming after me, I decided to try and maintain a good relationship with them. Like obviously it's annoying when they have to call you and email you and all this stuff all the time, but that's why whenever they would call, I wouldn't just ignore them. I would talk to them for a little bit and then let them know my situation. Like, hey, look, I don't have the money. I'm not going to have the money for another 6 months. So call me 6 months from now. It's like, if you owe somebody money, like, dude, you can't be the aggressive one, right? Because then they have the upper hand on you. So, and the upper hand in this situation was my credit being messed up. So my credit is still pretty messed up, and I'm still trying to rebuild that because of the mistakes that I made in my past. So it's like, and it's so insane when somebody owes you money and they feel like they can be aggressive towards you. It's just so insane. And so I'm not that way, like, if I owe somebody anything, it's like, I'm going to do my best to pay that back, at least be communicative about it. This one's just wild. It says, you should not commit rape on someone's daughter. The courtyard will learn of it. Good advice, but I think you should just end it with, you should not commit rape on someone's daughter. You should just not commit rape at all. Not because the courtyard will learn of it, but because you just shouldn't. But I mean, I guess what he's saying, obviously, it's like, just don't do it. This one's interesting. It's a bit more poetic, I guess. You should not drive away a powerful, strong man. You should not destroy the outer wall. Or should you not? Or it would destroy the outer wall, is another way to say it. You should not drive away a young man because it will make him turn against the city. So it's like this, dichotomy thing. It's like if you drive away a powerful, strong man, right? Like when he says drive away, I feel like he means like, don't what's the word? Like outcast, right? Don't outcast a strong man because this will destroy the outer wall. Meaning if you outcast a strong man in the city, then now the city has become weak. And you should not drive away a young man. Do not outcast a young man because he will turn against the city. And this is a very strong message here about, being about mental health, I think, about mental health and being there for people and recognizing the symptoms of mental health. Because, if you drive away a strong man, now the city's weak, right? And it's like, I guess that could be relevant for so many different reasons, right? Like your father, right? Your dad. It's like our fathers are supposed to be the stronghold of our family, of our home. And if we drive our fathers crazy, right? If we turn our backs on our fathers for the mistakes that they make, with instead of conversating with them, instead of sitting down and trying to resolve the issues that we have with them, then they're going to leave, and then you're left with a fatherless home. And so it's the same with anything in life. It's like, if all we have is, no family is perfect. No nation is perfect. No city is perfect. No organization is perfect. But if you slander and outcast the strongest link of that system simply for the mistakes that they've made, and they leave, now that whole system has become weak, right? And don't drive away the young man because he'll turn against the city. It's like, don't neglect the young people, because as we now know, they're full of angst, and that's when their villain era begins, and then they come back and shoot up a school or whatever, So it's like, no matter what, we need to protect the strong and the weak, and be there for them, and not neglect them, and not outcast them. The eyes of the slanderer are always move around as shiftily as a spindle. You should never remain in his presence. His intentions should not be allowed to have an effect on you. Oh yeah, the eyes of a slanderer always move around as shiftily as a spindle. That is what we call a tweaker. No, but seriously, you ever meet those people who are just very shifty? Like literally shifty, they're just either on drugs or coming off drugs or whatever. They're plotting in their mind. You can just tell they're not really there. They're just kind of just a vessel for the drugs or a vessel for the bad intentions. It's like, oh yeah, I just stay away from those people. People who are all shifty and just angsty and just anxious and weird. It's one thing to have anxiety, but to just be shifty and full of bad intention. Yeah, no. Stay away from those people. You'll do your life some good. And I used to be friends with a lot of people like that who ended up betraying me and doing crazy shit. I like this one. You should not boast in beer halls, with breweries in parentheses, like a deceitful man, which is so relevant for today because I live in San Diego, North County, San Diego, which is like the home of breweries. I think we have more breweries consecutively here than anywhere else in the nation. Like we have more breweries per capita or whatever than anywhere else in the nation here. It's like such a thing here. We were actually just laughing about it the other day. Me and some friends went out for some food at this little tavern, and right across the street, a whole another brewery just popped up out of nowhere. Like literally within a few weeks, they just built it out of scratch. And we're just like, okay, another brewery. We just love our breweries out here. But yeah, you should not boast in beer halls. Everybody gets that liquid courage and they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, man. I got you, whatever. You start making all these promises and all these, that you're not going to keep once you get sober. So I think it's funny. It's funny to think that the Sumerians were dealing with that 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Just some Sumerian out there like, oh yeah, man, I swear, dude, I got all this Anunnaki gold, man. I got this gold statue of Enki, bro. Trust me, or whatever they're saying. That's hilarious. We've just always been crazy, drunk motherfuckers, I guess. Another one on beer. You should not pass judgment when you drink beer. Yeah, when people are drunk, man, nobody's in their right mind. So it's like, when you're drunk, you're more aggressive, you're more wild. And so don't pass judgment if you're going to drink, man, it's like, do it to honestly relax and to honestly enjoy the people around you. A lot of people, that's what they say. That's the reason they think they're drinking. And that's the reason they tell other people that they drink for, right? Is to relax, to have a good time. But a lot of people don't drink for those reasons. Those are just the justifications that they use to drink. A lot of people are actually drinking to numb out. They're drinking to feel the opposite, actually. They're drinking because they want to get aggressive, or whatever. And they don't want to relax. They actually want to get crazy. But if you drink, honestly, to chill out and have a good time, I think you're fine. Because when you're drunk, you're not in your right mind. So you can't pass correct judgment, and you're going to make bad judgment calls, and you're going to make bad decisions based on those judgment calls and you're going to regret all of it the next morning. All right, so heaven is far, earth is most precious, but it is with heaven that you multiply your goods, and all foreign lands must breathe under it. Interesting one here. So, yeah, it's like heaven is far and earth is precious, but without heaven, you can't multiply your goods here. So, yeah, it's like heaven is this imaginative place while we're here. So we have to do what we can here physically with our lives here, but we should always do it with heaven in mind. Do it with spirituality, with God, with that aspect in mind. Because if you're just living for earth, then you're not aspiring for more, right? I mean, obviously obviously you can gain a lot of riches in this life being an atheist, agnostic, or whatever. But I think what he's saying here is like to truly have valuable success in this life, success that is sustained and genuinely appreciated. I think it has to come from a place of humbleness towards God. At least that's what I think. Okay, so at harvest time, at the most priceless time, collect like a slave girl, eat like a queen. My son, to collect like a slave girl, to eat like a queen. This is how it should be. I love that right there. It's like, and I like how he says collect like a slave girl and eat like a queen, not like a boy or a king. Because that's testament to how much the ancients actually appreciated women. And they were. We used to worship the goddesses. They played a huge role in the ancient past. Women played a huge role in the ancient past. So I like how he says that, slave girl and queen. Eat like a queen. Hey, fuck yeah. But I love this because I follow this in my life, man. It's like, yeah, work like a slave and then live like a king. Work like a slave, live like a queen. And that is true right there, man. You got to work hard, never lose sight of where you came from and always work just as hard as you did when you were broke. Work like you're broke, man, even if you are rich. I love that. I think that's a great message. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that because I get too comfortable. I'm like, oh, I made enough money this week. I made enough money this month. I can chill out. But you don't know what next month is going to be like. So you always have to continually work like a slave, even if you're already living like a queen or a king. And my dad used to tell me that all the time too. He said, you never know what tomorrow's going to be like. So any work that comes your way today, take it. Never put off work for tomorrow. Any work that comes your way today, take it. Who insults can hurt only the skin. Greedy eyes, however, can kill. I like this because it's like, yeah, I mean, if people are just talking shit, if people are just disrespecting you, it's not going to do nothing. But if somebody genuinely looks at you with envy and greed, ooh, that's a bad one. Do not like that one. That's why I keep my circle really, really small. I've had a lot of experiences with greed and envy in my life and betrayal. So yeah, man, be weary of people who say stuff like, I wish I had your life, or, oh my God, I wish I had what you had, or whatever. It's like, what? What do you mean? Like, don't you like your life? Like, why do you want to have my life? And it's funny because this is something that I realized for myself recently. It's interesting how, at least for me, like I wouldn't want to be anybody. I would not want to be anybody other than myself. Like it's cool how God literally put us in the correct body for most of us, right? Because some people want to be women, some people want to be men or whatever. And man, God bless those people's hearts because I do not feel that way. I do not want to be anybody else other than me. Like, hell no, I don't want to be anybody else. You know, it's like I couldn't imagine being anybody else. Like, yeah, sure, some things that people have, I want to aspire to. Like, I don't even wish I had what other people have. I really don't. I don't. When I see somebody that has something really cool, I'm like, oh wow, I want that for myself. I want to aspire to have that for myself. I don't say like, oh, I wish I had what they had. No, I just wish that I could. I want to aspire for myself to be able to get that for myself. You know, I was like, I can't imagine being anybody else. And I realized this recently because I've met a lot of rich people, a lot of people who have abundance and resource. But even though they have all that, I wouldn't want to be them. And I wouldn't want to live their life because you only see the riches. You don't see what it took for them to get the riches. And honestly, a lot of these people that I know who are rich and very successful are quite boring people in my eyes. Like, they live very, very boring lives that I would want nothing to do with. You know, the foods they eat, I don't like, right? The shows they watch, I don't like. Their friends that they have, I don't like. You just like the money or the car or whatever, but everything else about their life, you disregard. You know, so I'm totally cool with who I am because, and with what I have, because these are the things that I love. You know, I wouldn't want to be Elon Musk. That dude looks boring as hell. I would not want to be walking around being, well, I'm gonna go to Mars and Tesla. None of that, man. I wouldn't want to be Elon Musk. Hell no. His life looks boring as hell. Walking around with that fucking weird shaped body, looking around walking around like a robot with a tiny person inside there controlling his body or something. That boy is built like a motherfucking boombox, dude. Nah, I don't care. I would not want to be Elon Musk, even with all that money. I'd rather be Esoteric Eddie, 100%. Anyways, this is a good one. You should not beat a farmer's son. He has constructed your embankments and ditches. Yeah, this is a huge one right now, especially for what's going on in France. It's like, dude, don't bite the fan. Do not bite the hand that feeds you. Take care of the farmers. Take care of the tradesmen, because we're the ones who build the infrastructure. So don't look down on us. This is a good one. You should not buy a prostitute. She is a mouth that bites. You should not buy a house-born slave. He is a herb that makes the stomach sick. You should not buy a free man. He will always lean against the wall. That's crazy. Yeah, prostitution is the oldest form of business, man. That's been going on forever. But she is a mouth that bites. Yeah, makes sense. You should not buy a prostitute anyway, right? But I mean, hey, things haven't changed too much. You should not buy a house-born slave. You shouldn't buy a slave at all. Obviously, these are way different times. But he says he is a herb that makes the stomach sick. So it's like, yeah, you think a slave is going to help you like an herb would, but it's actually the opposite. A slave is an herb that will make the stomach sick, because a slave is going to despise you and hate you and plot your downfall. And I like this one too. You should not buy a free man. He will always lean against the wall. Yeah, I've experienced that myself, hiring people to do work for me who are spoiled. People who are spoiled and don't have that desperation and that need to aspire to more in life, they're going to be comfortable and they're going to be like, whatever. I'm getting paid by the hour. I don't really need to do anything. That's never been me, man. I've always kept my desperation. I've always kept that thrive and motivation. There's no leaning up against the wall for me. My dad always taught me, to keep my hands out of my pockets whenever I'm at work. Whenever I used to go work for him and I'd have my hands in my pocket, he'd be like, he'd tell me in Spanish, get your fucking hands out of your pockets. Excuse my language, but that's how he would say it to me, It's like, take your freaking hands out of your pockets. Like, what are you doing? We're here to work. Why do you have your hands in your pockets? You must have your hands free at all times. Get ready to pick something up, ready to do something. And so I learned that young. It's like, you got to have that motivation, that drive. So, don't buy a prostitute because she's going to bite your dick off. Don't buy a slave because he's going to plot your downfall. And don't hire a spoiled, complacent person because they're not going to get the work done. This one's interesting. This is more so for the guys, but it can relate to the women as well, I think. You should not choose a wife during a festival. Her inside is illusory. Her outside is illusory. The silver on her is borrowed. The lapis lazuli on her is borrowed. The jewelry on her is borrowed. It's kind of like when you go to the club and women have all this makeup and extravagant stuff on them, and then you take them home and they take it all off and they're a completely different person. It's wild, right? But I think this message goes deeper for both men and women. It's like, don't fall for somebody when they're dressed to impress, when they're acting to impress, right? Because that's not the real them. They're acting on their best behavior. They're dressing on their best behavior, but that's an illusion, and they're doing that for a reason. So it's like, take it slow. You know, sure, if they're attractive and they're looking awesome that particular night, and that's what attracted you to them, all right, that's fine. But make sure to take it slow and see what they're like when the festival's over, when the bar closes and the lights get turned on, you know. So take it slow, man. It's like, don't fall for the illusion of things. It's okay to be attracted by the illusion. That's why it's an illusion. But don't fall for the illusion. Be attracted to it and investigate it. All right. There are so many bangers in here, and I advise you to go check it out. The Instructions of Shuruppak, what is considered by me the oldest text on Stoicism. And I'm going to end with this banger right here, which I think is great. A great message. And it has to do with respecting your mother and father. It says here that you should not speak arrogantly to your mother. That causes hatred for you. You should not question the words of your mother and your personal God. The mother gives birth to the man. The father, like a god, makes him bright. The father is like a god. His words are reliable. The instructions of the father should be complied with. Bam! Straight Stoicism banger. Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, not every mother and father in this life are good parents. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of people grow up without their mother and their father, you know, and have to replace them with other mother and father figures throughout their life. Some people have multiple mother and fathers throughout their life. But regardless, I think everybody has a mother and father figure in their life that they appreciate. And I think it's huge for us to appreciate them. It's very beneficial for us to appreciate them and listen to them, you know. And that's why the Bible also stresses that point and puts a lot of importance on that point. The Bible says those who are obedient to their mother and father will be granted everlasting life. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And there's a point for that, right? It's like, if we were all to be good mother and fathers from the beginning of time till now, then the system of life would be easy. You know, we'd have a very self-efficient running system because every mother and father would do their part. Every child would do their part. And once the children grow up and to become mother and fathers, they would do their part, and the children would do their part, and the cycle would continue. Luckily for me, God gave me great parents. Not perfect parents, but great parents. And I didn't always have a great relationship with them. It's something that I had to mature into as I grew up, and I have an undying love and respect for them. You know, when my parents speak, I shut up. I don't try to butt in with my little opinions. No. Even if it's something that I know, even if they're telling me something I already know, I'm not going to roll my eyes and say, I know. No, when my mother and father tell me anything, when they speak, I just shut up and I listen. You know, unless we're having a fun conversation, then of course I'm going to have fun with them. But when they're giving me any advice, whether I'm appreciating it or I'm annoyed by it, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to listen. Because that's just the type of person I am. And I think it's important because it's our mother and our father, right? And it says a lot about a person. You can tell a lot about a person by how they respond to their parents and how they treat their parents and how they respect their parents. You know, like I've had friends that like just would not respect their parents, you know, and I even I've seen like in my own life, when my mother and father speak, sometimes my siblings will just butt in, and look, I love my siblings. If you're listening, I love y'all. But I've seen it for myself. Like sometimes, they'll just butt in, and it's like, bro, like this is our mom and our father. We don't need to give our 2 cents. We need to listen, right? Like, especially for those who are living with their parents, who are still borrowing money from their parents or whatever and stuff like that. It's like, how are you going to butt in and give your parents advice when you're the one living under their roof and borrowing money from them, and eating their food and stuff like that, So, and I think it goes deep, man, not just in the micro, but the macro. It's like, if you have an obedience and a respect for your mother and father, you will also have an obedience and respect for your divine mother and father, right? Which is everything. The divine mother and father are everything. It's life. It's the life that is around us. And so you will innately have a respect for people and for life. And so I think it's very important for us who have a relationship with any mother or father figure in our life, whether those are your biological mother and father or simply the people that raised you in any sort of way. It's important for us to respect them and be obedient to them and maintain that throughout our life, because as the Bible says, those who respect their mother and father will be given everlasting life. And you will see that in your life. It's when you respect your parents and you follow them, they give you gems. They give you gems. They really do. Gems of wisdom, gems of abundance, gems, all sorts of gems. And it creates a certain type of character, because then you will pass that on to your children and you will become a mother or a father one day. And if you relay those same attributes, those same morals, and you give back those same attributes and morals to your children, they will in turn love and respect you and take care of you in your old age. And this is how the human family system should work. So anyways, that was the oldest known text on Stoicism, known as the Instructions of Shuruppak by Tutu, the last Sumerian king before the Great Flood, to his son Ziusudra, the Sumerian Noah. I love y'all. I hope you're surviving the flood of your mind. I hope these will help you in some way. Peace. Namaste.